Possibilities are all around us. Everywhere we look, we see opportunity. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action. In communities all around the world that we call home. Like transforming an old bus to feed hungry children, or providing life-saving equipment to those who need it most. From fighting disease to rebuilding schools, together we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved today at Rotary.org.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rotary E-Club of 3310 first panel discussion. The topic for this afternoon is life or livelihood. Striking the delicate balance. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's tough. This is a really difficult period. That's why we call ourselves together as Rotarians to try to see what we can do in this particular difficult situation. And the best way to do it is perhaps to do it through the available social media that we know. And one of these is, of course, video conferencing. I have with me today a wonderful group of panel from my Rotary E-Club of 3310. First of all, let me introduce to you one by one. Past President Tan Mei Yen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mei Yen, and I'm most privileged to speak to a Rotarian for more than 20 years. And I have been working until January this year when I retired from Seng Health. Yes. Back to you, Mr. CP.
Thank you, Mei Yen. The next person I'd like to introduce is my immediate past president, Richard Ong. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard, immediate past president of Rotary E-Club 3310. Basically, I'm a real estate entrepreneur managing a team of agents and also shareholders of a few SMEs. Looking forward to share you my views. Back to you, CP Ban Seng.
Thank you. To my wonderful friend, past president, Ching Kwock Wing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kwock Wing. I am past president of Rotary E-Club of 3310. I retired. And prior to that, I was actually in the academia. I taught in university, Nanyang Technological University for over 10 years. And even prior to that, I was in the IT industry, traveling around the world promoting business. I'm very happy to be here at the panel, and I would like to share what I think and what I know about this critical issue of choosing between lives and livelihoods in this difficult time of the circuit breaker.
Thank you, Kwock Wing. Before we begin, I think I'd like to put a disclaimer and a caveat. All of us here are Rotarians, and we speak from our own personal experience and our own personal knowledge. I just want to reinstate that whatever we discuss, it is not necessarily the opinion of Rotary International. So ladies and gentlemen, with that in mind, let me begin this afternoon session. COVID-19 is definitely a black swan event for the 21st century. It is an event that people thought it would come, but nobody thought it would arrive the way it have arrived. Today, more than 3 billion population in the world are in some kind of lockdown or homestay. Whether you call it circuit breaker, whether you call it movement control order, whatever it is, most of them who are not classified as essential services are supposed to stay home. Although places like New Zealand is starting to open up, but there are still a lot of restriction being placed for social distancing or safe distancing, whichever way you want to call it. This 3 billion population represents a significant part of GDP, world GDP. And in fact, that total is shocking and frightening. $55 trillion at the moment is locked up. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call upon my friend and fellow Rotarian, PP Mayen, to share with us her view especially on the circuit breaker and lockdown situation that we are currently imposed upon. Mayen.
Thank you, CP Ban Seng. And to start off, I'd just like to say that lives and livelihood both are equally important. To me, we need to save lives before we can have livelihood. But the two are so intricately and meshed together that you really cannot separate them clearly on their own. Today, all of us are in some form of lockdown in a way. We in Singapore are having circuit breakers. Most workplaces are closed, as CP Ban Seng has said. And all of us are encouraged to stay at home unless we need to go out for essential services like seeking medical attention or buy food for ourselves and our family. How do we strike this delicate balance between life and livelihoods? Many of us are okay. We have enough reserves for now, not for a long time, and we hope this COVID and that pandemic will go off soon. However, until we have a vaccine or some form of treatment that is specific and can really provide the cure that we are looking for, and this is about 12 to 18 months away, some are already trying some medication. We are using experimental drugs today, like plasma treatment and so on, for those very, very severe cases, which to them is a last resort. Going forward, do we see ourselves clearly out of lockdown measures? We will, from my own perspective, have to continue to enhance environmental hygiene, personal hygiene, and keep some form of social distancing all the time until we are clear and really are assured that infections are at bay. We know for a fact today that whilst we can look out for symptoms for COVID, there are also asymptomatic patients walking around without any symptoms, and they are highly infectious. Patients infected with the SARS-CoV-2 not symptoms, and they show the symptoms before the symptoms appear. Hence, it is important for us to look after ourselves by protecting ourselves, by wearing masks when we go out, and keeping the social distance. These measures can be irksome, but do we want to take the risk knowing the hazard that is the virus is around the environment, even though we cannot see it, feel it, or sense it at any time? Who will be the next victim, we don't know. But it is our responsibility as individuals and as a community to help to prevent this very extensive spread in the community by doing our part to manage the risk of getting infected. In terms of affecting our livelihood, the most imminent, of course, in India is restriction on personal freedom. The freedom of getting together with friends, loved ones, to enjoy the various sporting activities and so on, which today we cannot physically do it, although we can still continue with it virtually over the internet using Netflix, Facebook, or whatever form of virtual connectivity that we can lay our hands on and are comfortable with using. So we are not totally cut off from the other people around us. So together, we can still see each other virtually, although physically we cannot touch. As far as the economy goes, I am sure all of us feel it and know that there is definitely a slowdown because all the businesses, almost 80% of them, unless they are really, really essential, have closed. Employees have been laid off, retrenched, or have to work from home. The lucky few who work from home, a lot, especially those daily rated, temporary employees in the gig economy, they all have no work anymore. While some of us worry about what to order next for my next meal, it's so frustrating I cannot see it for myself. Others have to worry about where my next meal is going to come from. So we can together, individually, collectively, alive and having a reasonable livelihood. I'd like now to hand it over to my fellow panelists to share with you a bit more on the economic aspect and the personal feelings about this period of lockdown.
Thank you, Mian.
Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. As a businessman, as an investor, what are your thoughts about COVID-19 and impact, especially, number one, the world and Singapore specifically? Richard.
Thank you, Charter President. Thank you, Charter President Ban Seng. First, I'd like to congratulate all Singaporeans for really adopting hygiene, social distancing, contact tracing, and really with the relevant agencies and make it that saving lives is not really an issue. But as an entrepreneur and both as self-employed and many SMEs, I'm more concerned about the livelihoods of Singapore citizens. Just let me give you a small background. In Singapore, there are approximately about 290,000 SMEs, making up 90% of all domestic companies and contributing to 50% GMP. Each SME, on average, hire about 10 staff and create jobs for about 65% of all workers. The well-being of Singapore economy depends on the success of the business, and SMEs are the core engines of the economic growth. The digital world, SME have more opportunities to grow and expand business. But just before, even when the COVID occur, SMEs are already facing 4 challenges. 1, finance. A lot of the SMEs are finding difficulties to maintain a substantial financial condition or a financial stream. They have to choose to grow, streamline their operational systems, and to reduce their relevant costs. And they have the concerns about technology adoptions. And these are all involve costs and dollars and cents. And they are still struggling to find out what is the best fit business model with all the world trade restrictions, tariffs, and so on. Second, the SMEs are facing problems with the manpower and the manpower management. Singapore companies are too dependent on the foreign workers. In the F&B, retail industry, and some particular industry, our business model are still very labor intensive. And the government has imposed that the dependency ratio of the foreign workers will be reduced or to maintain at 35% by the year 2021. So that poses another challenge even for the SME before the COVID. Many companies or SMEs have to start thinking of how to redesign their jobs, work process, and how they can adopt digital technology in order to be able to give value and to stay competitive and relevant in the global economy. The next challenge is how could the SMEs actually increase their local employee retention? Are they able to reskill them, retrain them to make sure that they could contribute value to the company and incorporating the new technology where the current employee are able to adopt? The third is digital transformation. Many SME ask themselves, it's a question if or when do the SMEs need to adopt digital technologies? I think the challenge for many SMEs are that they lack a mindset of the digital mindset, and they really don't have the expertise or knowledge of how about going through it, improving their operational process, and how can they better meet the consumer needs. And finally, for the SMEs and smaller companies, there's a serious threat of data security, the threat of being hacked and being infringed by cyber criminals. So these are all the SMEs are already facing during the challenges. When the COVID-19 take place recently, the immediate challenges that the SMEs faces. Number 1, liquidity crunch. Many of the industries are finding that it's so difficult even to fulfill the customer orders. There's a huge backlog of orders due to cancellation of flights, disruption of supply chains, and even the manpower. And even businesses who are run event management or equipment leasing already have no income since February. And they are hard pressed to able to pay wages. And of course, the most affected industries will be basically the retail, F&B, tourism, and aviation. And a lot of these industries are already feeling the pinch with 50% to 70% slash in revenue since February this year. Even though the government or relevant agency have been giving them support, but the decline in revenue or zero revenue really forcing them to seriously consider the question of cutting costs or retrenchment or ceasing operation. Otherwise, a lot of the SMEs will be facing challenges and going into bankruptcy. So this is the real challenge of the SMEs. I'm appealing to all Rotarians who could maybe work together to collaborate and help one another to pull through this tough time. The real concerns of the SMEs are they are fighting or facing the challenges are basically liquidity crunch, no income, fixed operating expenses, how to adopt digital solutions, are they able to enhance their business efficiencies, how could they upgrade their capability, and are they able to optimize the workforce, and or are they able to explore new revenue model. Seriously, I appeal to all Rotarians who are listening in, or many who have watched the video, that I think with all our vocational service and our experience all pulled together, I'm sure we can help many Rotarians or even the community of these SMEs, self-employed, to pull through this tough time. And finally, I think the real challenge will also be getting ready for the post-COVID. How do we then face in within the next 12 to 18 months? And could we survive even during the next 6 months? Back to you, Charter President Ban Seng.
Thank you, Richard. Much appreciate your comment. Governments all over the world are struggling, and they are struggling with this major issue to save lives or to save livelihoods. It's really a dichotomy. For many people, especially for men, their work is their identity. And if they have no work, they have no job, who are they? They identify themselves, I'm a postman, I'm a doctor. They never talk about me being who I am. So to answer this question, I like to call on my professor friend, as I affectionately call him, Ching Kwock Wing. Would you like to comment on this? Thank you.
This is a very interesting question. To save life first or to save livelihood first? And let me use an analogy. Suppose the girl you want to be your wife asked you, if your mom and I are drowning at the same time, who will you save first? We all know the correct answer, right? If you still want a wife, what will you say? There's only one mom, and you can have many, you know what I mean. So, save lives, save livelihoods. You only live once, just like your mom is the only one. But well, you can lose your livelihood today. Maybe you find a better livelihood tomorrow. But, and this is a big but, what if the cost of livelihood is very, very high, higher than life? Just now, the moderator suggested that to a man, your identity is your life. And if you lose your identity, you might as well lose your life. So if you cannot be who you want to be, then what is the purpose of living? Also, now what if death is not a certainty? Suppose mom is in the shallow water and she can swim, then there's a good chance that my mom may not die. So why wouldn't I save the love of my life first? We know that the fatality rate is only 2% or even lower. That's the figure that's coming out of China. So make some sacrifice in livelihood so I don't even get infected. Fair enough. But no more livelihood, no more identity, no more work. That's another matter. And some more, I may not die, so why wouldn't I take the chance? And this is exactly what we are observing. Protests against lockdown are burning like wildlife in many states in the USA. And besides this unconstitutional act of the state, to impose restriction on movement, actually, research has shown that if you compare figures coming out of different states with different level of restrictions to movement, show that the lockdown may not make a significant difference to the number of deaths. Some Swedish scientists even argue that lockdown is the wrong answer. Now, on a serious note, to a lot of people, not having a livelihood is worse than not having life. And the fact is that the people at the lower rank of our social strata cannot live their lives if livelihood was taken away. Daily workers and even salary workers. Once you get laid off, no income, how are you going to pay for your mortgage? You may not even be able to bring food to the table. And that is a lot of people. So this is what I would say. For those whose livelihood is not badly affected or not even affected at all, for example, civil servants who will receive a salary, however long is the lockdown, it is a terrible thing to say. If we are dead, then livelihoods no longer matter. Balance, yes, but we have to be able to decide at which point of the scale. So lockdown 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I think we have a very, very important decision to make for ourselves. Back to you, CP Ban Seng.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kwock Wing. You make a point about a country called Sweden. And I like to basically talk about the Scandinavian country. Two countries in particular, they are side by side. One is Sweden, the other is Norway. Both of them have comparable figures. One of them, Sweden, doesn't believe in lockdown. And so they continue life as it is. Whereas Norway decided that they should do the lockdown. Can Mayan like to comment about this in terms of the lockdown and no lockdown effect?
Thank you, CP Ban Seng. Yes, definitely. All risk management, including managing the COVID risk we are facing today, has to be in context. The country of Norway and the country of Sweden may be both in the Scandinavian region, but the people's beliefs and the government's attitude towards the management of the COVID virus and patients who could be infected could be totally different, because the considerations in the context of their respective countries could be very different. To share from the enterprise risk management perspective, we need to look at what's happening externally around us, individually, as a community, as a country, and as a world citizen. Today, most of the trade in this current prevailing COVID pandemic period has virtually come to a standstill. Nobody is traveling. Hence, the airlines and all the related transport, the cruise ships, and I'm sure you have heard and you've read the news that many of them are on the brink of going upside down. How do we look at ourselves internally? What are our resources? What are the opportunities and the threats that I can see for myself and as a country? That determines how we balance lives and livelihoods. Of critical importance is to ensure that the health system will not be going off in terms of being overwhelmed by the number of people they have to treat. It is true that we can use herd immunity as one strategy and is one option, which some countries have decided, like Sweden, to use. Sweden is a huge country. The people are not living in very close proximity like we in Singapore. Just think about the HDB heartlands. How many people live close to each other every day? Compared to, say, in Sweden, where apart from even the townships, they are living in open countryside. They don't need to have very strict social distancing. They have social distancing all the time because they travel, they have suburban and they have urban, and the times when they meet. But other cities like New York is very different. They are like us, or Sydney. Their concerns are similar to ours. And there is no clear-cut right path for us. Every one of us have to look at the risks, the opportunities, the threats, and most important, as CP Chew Ban Seng has said, what is acceptable to the people? What are their wishes or preferences that we must take into account? There is no stream rolling that we can do, however powerful a dictator we may be, because unity in the people is power. And when it comes to livelihoods, people are prepared to take the risk of death to secure livelihood. As Kwock Wing has said, it is necessary for us all to take our own positions. And what I think is the right thing to do may not be the right thing for you or other people around us. However, there are some commonalities that we can identify and which we can address as a community. As Rotarians, I agree fully with IPP Richard that we should step forward, reach out, share our expertise, money. And I'm sure Rotary clubs in Singapore and the world over are already doing this. They're coming together, collecting funds to donate masks, PPEs, personal protection equipment, to those who most need them. They provide food for those kids who may not have food if they don't go to school, for example, in the US. So what is the right balance has to be determined in the context of where we are living at that moment of time. And we are living in a very highly volatile, complex, ambiguous operating environment. Nothing is for sure today. When I wake up today, I'm not sure whether I will get infected or even if I will be able to live through the next 6 months, perhaps. So live for today, manage as best as we can by balancing the downside with the upside of COVID. I'm not saying that we should get ourselves infected. Neither are saying that we should just hole up in our homes and stop everything that we are doing. Nothing is pure doom or gloom. It is up to us to think through what is best for us given the current dynamic and changing situation. We must be agile, flexible, and be prepared and ready to take the opportunities that present. And I'm sure IPP can share with you some of the many opportunities that are already existing today. And while some are going belly up, a number are on the upward trend in some businesses. Back
Thank
to
you, Marianne. Much appreciated.
CP Ban Seng.
Thank you. Thank you. Richard, would you like to comment? Because in the light of what's happening, people believe in this, that if you go out to work, you are going to build up immunity, because it's already been proven that something like 5 to 15% of human beings in infected area has actually got antibodies in their system. So by putting ourselves back at home, living in a bubble, we are actually lowering our immunity rather than improving and being able to fight. The moment you get back into society, and because COVID viruses are still there, you will be basically get infected and then tested positive. What do you think, Richard?
Thank you, Ban Seng. I'm not a medical expert, and therefore I don't really know that really works. But I guess scientific researchers has clearly shown that uh, the immunity system do work. So I will not really talk about this or discuss it because I'm not an expert to that. But I think what really we are worried about is the cook up, the claustrophobic, the mental illness that people who have to worry about their livelihoods. I would like to more to focus that we know that there are about 235,000 self-employed in Singapore. And we have about 220,000 SMEs averaging hiring about 5 to 10 staff. That make up about probably 1 million livelihoods, which is at stake. Currently, only probably 20% of the self-employed get probably will get the $1,000 a month for the next uh, 9 months. And probably some of the SMEs will get some jobs, JSS, the job support schemes, rescue future credits, and other loans, and so on. My concern actually is that can really Rotarians in our own community help one another so that we could improve our skill sets. Besides just raising funds to buy PPEs, giving food, we should also think about how can we help those who their livelihoods will be affected. If you are only having $1,000 a month, how then could you learn new skills and bring bread and butter back home? So I really encourage many of the Rotarians who are owners of SMEs or who are trainers, facilitators. There are really some skills that you could share with Rotarians and help them to improve so that they can better deal with this post-COVID and maybe look for other revenue models. Let's say, for example, someone can come out and just paying a small fee and teach them how to host a Zoom. How could they use a Zoom meeting to present a meeting or present a sales presentation to their customers? These are all relevant skills because they couldn't go. But could we, as Rotarians, help one another and help many of the Rotarians who are self-employed or SMEs? Or maybe help the community, people who are struggling to earn their living. What's going likely to happen is that as SMEs, you're going to approach the 3 R's approach. Try to reduce costs as much as they can. And hopefully, they doesn't have the liquidation and cash flows crunch. Next, they have no choice but to retrench 30% or even more of the employees so that they could stay alive and survive during this period. And of course, the most challenging and the toughest is that SME owners have to think how to restructure their business. In that particular area of restructuring their business, looking for revenue models, they really need, of course, many of our Rotarians who are expert in business or networks to help them maybe so that they will not incur more costs in looking into restructuring their business. Although there are available services, SME centers, about 9 of them around Singapore, basically supported by Enterprise Singapore, ASME, SMF, and SCC. But many of the SMEs are not able to get the kind of support that they want. So I really sincerely hope and appeal to all Rotarians, both Singapore, Malaysia, East Malaysia, to work together and come up with good programs that we can really help SMEs and many self-employed and even the community so that their livelihoods will not be threatened. And of course, what we can do is that to maintain and continue to be mindful of the hygiene, personal hygiene, social distance, contact tracings, and many, many things. We really didn't know when Singapore borders will be open. You know, our economy is very export orientated. Now with no eggs from Malaysia, we now have to import eggs. And most likely it's going to be air freight. So the cost of living and many of our Singapore will continue to rise in the current situation and even in the post-COVID, where we start relooking in how we do and business. As for the migrant workers, I think the relevant agency really have to look into how we should build new structures, new dormitories, so that such things will not happen and the living conditions can be much better. I'm sure we'll continue to build up our medical and hospital infrastructure. And lastly, all of us definitely have to change our lifestyle and our behavior, even after post-COVID. Back to you, Ban Seng.
Thank you, Richard. I still like to come back to the subject of herd immunity, because I think this is relevant in respect of whether we talk about saving lives or saving livelihood. All governments around the world, in view of the COVID circuit breaker, lockdown, movement control orders, have decided to farm out a lot of money, you know, and they, in a sense that farming out a lot of money helps in the short term, but in the long term, it does not work unless people get back to work. If this thing continue, and I don't know how long COVID will actually last, it could just disappear like SARS, which basically disappeared mysteriously in July. I don't know. Or it could stay on for the next 2 years until a vaccine is found. What really happened is that if we do not go back to be gainfully productive, if we do not go back to produce GDP, proper GDP, the first thing that's going to happen is deflation, because people just need to sell everything to raise money to be able to support themselves. The next thing that's going to happen, and if the government continue to pump in money through easy liquidity, what actually will subsequently happen is that you're going to run into a situation of hyperinflation. And when we go into that, boy, the world is really in a bad shape. So I like to address this question to my professor friend again, who is more academically inclined to address this particular issue of government's free money and herd immunity.
Thank you, Ban Seng, for the very tough questions, actually. And PP Mayan talked about balance, and her key point was we do what we can to deal with this pandemic. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. And I think in the longer run, herd immunity will be the default mode. We don't want to talk about it. It is politically incorrect to say that, leave that to nature, chance, right? And sooner or later, people will develop the immunity, and those who get sick have to get sick, will get sick. Those who develop the immunity will not get sick. Now, let me sort of analyze what is happening now in the world. Chinese set the benchmark. So what they did has never happened before in human history. And China paid a very high price for that. But it so happened that the political institutions social institutions, and the mindset of the people are all conducive to these drastic measures. The rest of the world are doing some form of lockdown, but no one so far have the same stamina. Now, China implemented the complete lockdown for solid 3 months. And without prejudice, I think to adopt the Chinese model, you not only have to act swiftly and decisively and go all the way to get to 0 death, minimum new cases in the shortest possible time. Anyway, like a miracle, China did it. 3 months, January, February, March, lifted Wuhan on April 8th, 0 death now. But this model is impossible to follow, let alone match. So what do we see for the rest of the world? Italy emulated the Chinese model, but they already lifted the lockdown shorter than 2 months. Still, people are dying. Germany, France, UK, USA, they are all talking about lifting before June. And people will still be dying long after that. So I don't believe that Singapore, we can have that seminar either. And if, God forbid, the numbers are still not looking good come June 1st, maybe we still have to open up. Because after all, Singapore is an open port. And the livelihood of Singapore is this open port. And how can we not be open? The other countries in the West, the developed countries who are trading with us, feeding us, they are already opening up, even without the numbers to support it. So how can we insist that we are going to protect this paradise of us by locking ourselves up and try to aim for this 0 death, 0 new cases? I think it is impossible. Back to you, CP Ban Seng.
Thank you, Kwock Wing. Today we heard the statistic. Singapore has 528 new cases. The number of cases among Singaporean and permanent residents is actually below 10. In fact, the numbers has been coming down. But yet we have 16,000. I think more than 50 to 60% of that number represents foreign workers living in dormitories. Do you think that we will see that number come down to close to 0 within the next month or so, when we actually liberate ourselves from 1st July 2020 and we say, hooray, let's celebrate, we are back and we have freedom. How's life going to look like then? Mian?
Thank you, CP Ban Seng. I agree fully with CP Kwock Wing that there's no way in which we can totally lock down ourselves and isolate from the rest of the world, because we are an international business, transport, technology hub. That's the way we have to be to survive, because Singapore is just too small. We don't have oil, we don't have tin or gold, we don't have rubber trees, we don't even grow our own food very much, except for some aquaculture, some fish farms. It's not sufficient to feed our own people. My take is that we need to strike a balance. What can we live with in terms of having people continuing to be infected and be in a community? Are we going to abandon this group and then let it go free? No. We still need to have contact tracing. We still need to have testing in place. And in fact, I would say that the high numbers that we are seeing today in terms of numbers infected have a lot to do with the number of testing that we are undertaking. Testing is good because it gives us feedback on the extent to which people are being infected. Saving grace is that amongst the foreign workers living in dormitories, most close monitoring to ensure that they will get the required medical attention should their condition deteriorate. This is very important. So the number one thing that we need to do is to make sure that our healthcare system is able to provide the level of care that is required and needed by the people by stratifying the severity of the cases. Mild symptoms, okay. And in fact, the reason why we are looking for a vaccine is to make sure that we give that immunity to people who do not have the immunity naturally by getting infected. What really is vaccination is you're actually injecting some tiny portion of non-active virus into the body to stimulate our body into producing the antibodies that are needed. So herd immunity is very important. And in fact, we need 70 to 80% of the people in our country or around us to have that herd immunity before we can say we are safe against a virus. A very good example is the seasonal flu. Why are we encouraging people to get vaccinated every year? Because the way we can say the SARS-CoV-2 is not mutating. In fact, it's very actively and dynamically evolving right now. And none of our experts and scientists tell us specifically that they have found the origins or the cause of this virus being in the state it is today. So we need to continually look at the strategies we are using and balancing it against livelihoods. What IPP Richard has said is very correct. We need to help those who are vulnerable find a niche to continue with being able to have a basic fundamental livelihood.
Thank you, Mian. I thought I wanted to share with you a very interesting a piece of work that is done by our Singapore University of Technology and Design. They have done a prediction, and this prediction is based on data analytical analysis. When will COVID-19 end? And this was basically updated as at April the 29th. And surprise, surprise, it says this: for Singapore, there's a 97% chance that around 10 of May 2020, it will sort of taper off. And by 19th of June 2020, COVID will have disappeared from Singapore totally. If you look collectively at the world, there's a 97% chance that COVID will pass on by 30th of May. And by the 2nd of December 2020, COVID will probably be like SARS, history. I don't know how accurate this is, but this is done by SUTD and is done on a statistical data analysis. And I posted this on my Facebook page, and if you're interested to look at it, you're always welcome to see it and to, of course, criticize. But of course, this is done by data analysis, and this is done by academia, and you can see whether this is true or not. The reality of the situation is that we are uncertain when things will be better. So, Richard, would you like to sort of quickly round up and say your views on COVID-19 lives or livelihood? And Ching Kwock Wing followed after that.
I think as a roundup, I think basically we have to still, for the SMEs, we still have to look at liquidity, whether we should retrench workers or whether we should reskill them, and whether how can we pass through this time. I would encourage more so, since we are from Rotarians, that we should try to make a difference to some of our Rotarians or the community, how we can improve their livelihood. Be an inspiration, show that you can inspire them to learn new skills, to change their mindset, to have a more digitized mindset, and take the challenges instead. Really, Rotary connects, and Rotary opens opportunity. And therefore, to round up, I would like to encourage all Rotarians who are very well equipped, both financially, skill sets, to really start conducting or opening up training through the Zoom platform, just simply sharing certain skills which they could quickly adopt and improve their livelihood. Back to you, Ban Seng.
Wing, would you like to comment?
Okay, you talk about the studies by universities, and there are lots and lots of studies by the universities. Of course, they produce different predictions, different results. But one thing, I guess, it might be gut feeling, but this is a virus. This is a virus that already the scientists are saying that it's related to SARS. It kind of has a similar DNA structure, and it's also related to influenza. It also has a lot of similarity. So history will tell us that we will conquer the virus, because we have always done that. Even the worst disaster called the Spanish flu did not wipe out civilization, did not wipe out humanity. And we have been learning, and since then we got smarter. And at the time of the Spanish flu, I think they got no clue, and that's why this social distancing and the breakdown of the medical system and all this, they have no knowledge. But if something that we can go by, I think China has taught us a very, very good lesson. And even if we can't match that kind of super performance, we can still learn from them. And therefore, make sure we keep ourselves hygiene and social distancing. But we really don't have to go to this complete lockdown, which is going to create hardship, probably would drive a lot of people into depression. I don't know about suicide. So I think that we cannot afford to do. And so just by playing careful, I think I said this so-called herd immunity. It's politically not correct to say that let's do that, but we are kind of leaning towards let this herd immunity eventually take its effect. We will do our best of containing by making sure that we are keeping the social distance, we are keeping the hygiene, and we are making sure that those who are critically infected will get the treatment, and that way we actually to reduce the casualty. Then, of course, from the Rotarians' perspective, I think this is a time we show that what the Rotarian can do we have been successful in fighting the polio, which is also a virus. And I think scientists have already said that this is probably something that we are going to have to live with. And maybe then for the Rotary, this is another initiative that we can take on and fight this coronavirus and make sure that we will have it eliminated from the world.
Thank you, Kwock Wing. Thank
Thank
you. I think we're about time to finish off this, to wrap up this particular session. Before we leave this panel, I just want to give one word of encouragement. You know, when we talk about safe distancing and social distancing, one thing I learned about, and I learned it, you know, with the Toastmasters, they say we may be further away from each other without the physical contact, but actually we become so much closer with everybody through the social medias that are available, the tools that are available through web conferencing, video calls, and etc., etc. Would you like all of you to just say one thing that's been positive about COVID-19? Would you like to start with me?
Yeah. Yes, CP Ban Seng. What I think we need to do is to stay safe. Watch out for each other, keep each other safe, and as Rotarians, look seriously into how we can, as a group, help those less privileged and more vulnerable amongst us find a place in our society to continue with their livelihoods and stay safe. That's all
Thank
I
you.
have. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me on the.
Richard, would you like to say positive words before
I
we
think
just close?
overall, my positive words are Rotarians are great guys. I think we can do a lot of miracles and help many underprivileged or people who need immediate help. And therefore, I would encourage all continue to connect with like PPE, masks, and even less fortunate. And for the Rotarians who have a lot of skill sets, I would encourage them to conduct more platform trainings, how to host a Zoom, how to do sales presentation, and share all their valuable experience during this lockdown. And I really wish every Rotarian stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. We will make a difference. We will inspire others. Rotary connects and Rotary opens opportunities for everyone. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Kwock Wing, your final words?
Yes, something positive out of this COVID-19. I can talk about a lot of possible things. Some people even coined this and said the year 2020 is the watershed year and this is the ACBC. So not before Christ and after Christ, but before coronavirus, after coronavirus. I'm sure life will never be the same again after this experience of the 3 months and probably this new way of living is going to be with us. Everything seems to be online, and I've been watching documentaries coming out of China, and my goodness, they have actually exploited this crisis of 3 months and truly developed an online, I would say, online living, food, entertainment, even education, and the likelihood is that they are going to continue with that development, and perhaps students no longer have to go back to school but learn from home, and we no longer have to go to outside to have food, and grocery. It will be ordered with our cell phones, and it will be delivered to us. So there is, of course, a silver lining to every dark cloud, and I look forward. I look forward to this Internet of Things live that is definitely coming.
Thank you. Thank you. We have come to the end of the program, and I hope you have liked it. I hope you have enjoyed the frank discussion that we fellow Rotarians in Rotary E-Club of 3310 have the opportunity to share with every one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, on our Facebook page, if you like to make any comment and you like to think about any specific topic you would like to hear from us, and whether we can invite any other special speakers who would like to participate in the panel discussion, by all means, you're welcome to give your feedback and comment. We hope to see you pretty soon and stay in touch. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.